United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, it's time for us now to do community and student staff recognition. Yes.
So good evening, board and HSD community. Tonight at our July regular board meeting, we have our business department here that we will recognize and honor. They have been a tremendous amount of help, and they have shouldered the burden of these raises that we have approved recently and distributed the checks. Their work allows for us to issue timely compensation checks, retro checks, stipend checks, summer school checks, you know, you name it, they do it. So we do appreciate them wholeheartedly. We appreciate the entire team. We have part of the team here today. And I'd like to ask Sarah Biddle, our Director of Business Services, to come up and help us distribute the certificates. Yeah. We've been very, very lucky to have a full team be working throughout the summer, working in these past few weeks. And I would say that this is one of the years that I do see staff recognition among staff. So I do want to say that last week, this room was transformed into a check distribution center. And the ladies spent turns here distributing checks, signing checks out, and they were met with just gratitude, I would say, and just well wishes and wishes of thanks because of their efforts. So staff as a whole recognizes their efforts, and I think that it is just an absolute honor to honor them tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Okay, so this one is for Esther Villanueva.
Yay.
Yay.
Esther's our payroll specialist, and just appreciate her so much. We do have another payroll specialist who is not here tonight. Her name is Nancy Lopez. We also thank her for her work and her contribution to the organization.
And next we have Lisa Wiggins.
Good job, Esther.
And next we have Rosa Plaza.
Yay, Rosa.
Rosa helps us to make sure we have all of our paid, our vendors paid, and our contracts paid. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Definitely. The rest of the team couldn't make it here tonight, but I will give this to them and thank them for their work.
So we do have, I think it's worthy of mention, we do have Deanna Haygood, who's our other business services manager. And then we also have Maricela Garcia, who is our secretary support services in the department. And of course, Sarah, our director. So we thank them. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
We will be honoring different departments and different school sites every month. So we have a timeline for the board to do later this week. So every department and every school site will have the opportunity to be honored. Okay,
our county office, our superintendent of the county will be here at 5:30 to swear in Kathy. So why don't we move along on our agenda? And I think we'll go to public comments. Do you have any emails on public comments?
I do not have emails for public comments.
I know we do have someone who wants to call in.
Don't we have to approve the agenda?
Oh, yes, let's approve the agenda while they're calling. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. I will second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3-0. All right, well, let's go to the consent items, since we haven't had her call in. I know that she's ready to call in. Oh, good.
Call from Christy Estrella Espinoza. To accept this call, press 1.
Hi, Christy, go ahead. You're on speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Pull off your mask. Make sure it's over your nose. Don't touch. Back up. Move over. Wash your hands. These are just some of the phrases that have become part of what is described as our new normal. The problem is they aren't normal, and these practices are more than just words. They are commands, and they are what our kids were forced to experience the last 18 months and will continue to experience in the new school year, according to the newest guidelines from the CDPH. I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of individuals describing masks as something they will get used to, or not that bad. And maybe for a quick target run, they aren't that bad, but let's be clear. Our kids are wearing these masks 30 to 45 hours a week. Children are not medical professionals reaping benefits of a pay nurse for working and following the rules. They have not chosen this path, and neither have we. They are our babies, and they are in school to learn, play, socialize, and gain confidence, not to be trained to fear one another, feel any sort of responsibility for COVID, or have communication hindered because they can't see each other. So why? It's not because they are a threat. In fact, children, particularly school-age children, are not drivers of COVID transmission. And growing evidence suggests they are less susceptible to infection, have milder infection, and are infrequently responsible for household transmission. Per CDPH July 2021, kids aged 0 to 17 make up 22% of our population and 0% of COVID deaths. 0. If we want to take it a step further and look at all of California, 39.5 million population, total COVID deaths are 0.16 of the population. Not even 1%. So what are we doing here? What are we protecting ourselves from? It's time to stop and set out a safe zone and fight for what is right. Masks are not federally mandated. Each school district takes directions from their state, and per CDPH, masks are part of the guidelines set forth. I'm not asking for anything that's not already happening in the United States. Of our 50 states, 9 are like California, where governors have suggested mask mandates. 9 are with absolutely no mask mandates, and 32 allow local authority. And that's all I'm asking for tonight. As our elected officials, you have nominated yourself and we need your support. I'm not asking you to take the masks away. All I'm asking is that you help us get our rights back to choose. Look at the data for our county and you will see. We've had 63 deaths since COVID started, and that's about 0.096 of our county's population. How can that even be a question? Groups of people all over the state are standing up for what's right. Recently, Let Them Breathe and Reopen California Schools joined forces and on July 22nd filed a joint lawsuit against the state of California, challenging the state's facial covering, asymptomatic testing, and close contact quarantine guidance for schools K through 12. We too can be a part of what the kids need. Meeting can be hard at times. There's not always a clear path. But as our elected officials, you've chosen to stand up and be the voices of our community, and even more importantly, the voices of our children, and they really need you. There's no regret in stepping forward for what you believe in. There's only regret in being afraid to do so. As a board, you are responsible for listening to your community, and then together come with all of the information, come up with our community standards, not just let our children live in a district with blanket policies. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you, Christy.
And I have 2 other people that are my house that are at my house now that are going to speak, so can I let the next person go?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Hello, this is Kathy Estrella.
Yes, Kathy, go ahead.
Okay. I'm not aware how close schools follow OSHA standards, but as a company who sets and regulates safety and health for 7 million businesses nationwide, I'd say their opinion is significant. I came across the following on their website, and I quote an app. The CDC has determined that some face coverings may both serve as source control and provide some personal protection to the wearer, but we should consider them to be personal protective equipment. Not at this time. The recent CDC scientific brief shows that some cloth face coverings have the potential to provide personal protection benefits. However, the CDC also noted that additional research is needed to expand the evidence base for the protective effects, the cloth mask, and in the particular to identify the combinations of materials that maximize both their blocking and filtering effectiveness. Factors such as design, construction, and fabric selection will have a substantial impact on the overall effectiveness of the face coverings for personal protection. At this time, OSHA does not think enough information is available to determine whether a particular cloth face covering provides sufficient protection from the hazards of COVID-19 to be personal protective equipment under OSHA standards. OSHA has typically considered protective equipment designed and constructed to meet and recognize consensus standards to meet the requirements of PPE standards. My question to you is, if OSHA doesn't believe all masks protect their workers, specifically with COVID-19, why does our government and why are we allowing it to be at the mercy of our children? I'm aware that these difficult times that it makes it hard to determine what's best. But there is so much information out there to be evaluated, so the right answers can be established. And I personally don't think our government has done their due diligence. By the way, have you ever read Fauci's email where he states that masks are of no value to this pandemic? Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and God bless us all. I have another speaker to come. Is that all right?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Estoya Campbell. I'm a mother of 2, and my daughter is going into 2nd grade at Lad Lane. The past year, I watched my daughter go from happy and eager to learn to discouraged and needing as much push as possible, stay focused through the school day. The excitement to learn had started to diminish. Lucky for us, I was home for her, and once the school day was done, I was able to pick up the pieces. But there were some things that I couldn't make right. The pandemic had us all in a standstill. Moving on to this upcoming school year, I think it's very important we start with the subject of mental health. My friend is a mental health counselor for youth in Santa Clara County. During this pandemic, she has seen a 70% increase in clients. Each week, she had a new story about how these kids have been affected, numerous suicides and hospitalizations. Speaking of suicide, there was a 50% increase over the last year in children ages 10 to 24. My friend was affected so much that she had to take a leave of absence to check in with herself and take care of her mental health. If a fully trained adult therapist couldn't take the weight of this pandemic, what makes us think our children can? 1 out of 5 children are diagnosed with a mental health issue, and study after study has proven that mask wearing is directly linked to this mental health crisis in children. It has been scientifically proven that masks do not keep COVID out, but they do keep carbon dioxide in. A child in a mask is killing us 70% of what is exhaled. I think it is important to discuss the bacteria that will be running rampant in these masks. They will be wearing them for more than 6 hours plus a day, all while touching them constantly. They'll be wearing them to the bathroom, taking them on and off throughout the day, and even dropping them on the floor. This defeats the entire purpose of protecting any of these kids. CDC guidelines state that masks are not required in restaurants, movie theaters, or even stores. Why can't we expect the same guidelines for our children attending classes daily? We can walk through a Costco or the mall maskless, but our children can't sit and learn in that same way. What are we doing? The least vulnerable population is being sacrificed for the greater good. And I say that loosely. The greater good is a sarcastic expression. And the facts are just that. They're facts. This is a virus with a 98.2 chance of survival. The CDPH has chosen to ignore the overwhelming evidence that children are at extremely low risk for being affected with COVID, transmitting it to others, or even becoming seriously ill. These are the facts. I ask you today, what cost are all of you willing to sacrifice our children and mental health for?
Rebecca. Thank you for your input.
Okay, thank you.
We'll wait to see if we have any other callers.
Is there, I can see an email at the board email. I don't know, Fred, can you check that?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
It's on.
Okay, no problem. All right. So, let's go to, consent items. That would be, 6, agenda item 6. And
I make a motion that we approve consent items 6A through 6. Okay,
I second that motion.
any discussion?
There's somebody calling.
Oh, okay.
we didn't finish.
Oh, sorry. Can't I just answer it?
Yeah, answer so they don't hang up.
Call from.
Hi Priscilla. We have to finish a vote. Can you hold?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a discussion on the consent items?
I don't have it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so 3-0 on the consent items. Go ahead, caller.
Priscilla, you're clear to speak if you'd like.
Hi, from Priscilla. Hello,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Yes.
We didn't get your last name.
Hardy,
Harding.
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I'm a mom of children that right now is starting the second grade. And so he was his household from Lead Lane. And what I usually like to take in consideration is this all math thing. I totally respect it, the people that feel safe like that. But I think we live in a democracy country and a state. We should be able to vote and decide what's best for our kids. I have been seeing my kid experience anxiety. Also, I see, getting nervous every time he has to go to school because he cannot breathe. He was punished by a teacher, a substitute teacher, the end of the last year when he put his mask down outside and she made him to run a lap with mask because she said that this would be a punishment for him because he put his mask down outside on the field. I don't want to see my kid trying to refuse to go to school and learn because he's a good kid, he's a good student, because he needs to wear a mask. When now they're able to go to restaurants, they're able to go to stores everywhere without masks. There we're gonna see people from school, we're gonna see people from everywhere. So I don't think it really makes sense to make the kids to wear masks from inside the school. This is causing a lot of problems. Majority of the parents right now are feeling comfortable to send the kids to school, and I think we have the right to vote today and decided today not being mandatory. In the same way that the school district are able to provide long distance learning from kids that cannot wear masks, I think now is able to do the opposite side. So we are able to send our kids to school the way that they feel comfortable and the way that works for them and their brain, and allow the kids that still not there yet to learn from home. I think we need to be a real democracy right now, and I really feel like you gotta take this in consideration, as a lot of kids getting emotionally affected by this, and this can cause them permanent damage that they're not going to be able to fix when they grow up. All this distance learning are not being very healthy for them either. They are taking chance to learn, to socialize, and you're really not doing anything better. So that I feel like you can take into consideration. I think we should vote and be open vote, because I think we are experiencing a lot of sabotage too. And we decide what's best for our kids.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
To say.
Thank you very much for your advice.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I think it's time for us to swear in a new trustee.
We want to welcome County Superintendent Krista Lovato.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, come on over. It is my distinct pleasure to be here tonight. This is actually one of my favorite responsibilities as an elected official. And before I actually swear you in, I want to thank you. Because, you know, being a board member is a difficult job. And I don't think our community always realize the time and the effort that you put in, really being volunteers, really, and caring about our kids. And then I feel that we're very blessed in San Diego County that we have people like you that will step up to the plate and be a part of the vision, the direction, you know, strategic planning in the best interest of kids. So before I actually officially swear you in, and once I do, you can't leave. You gotta stay with it. But I want to thank you on behalf of myself as county superintendent and our county board. Thank you for being a part of the future of the children of Hollister School District.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, I'm gonna have you raise your right hand. I, and then state your name,
I, Kathy Toasty,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose
or purpose
of evasion,
of evasion,
and that I will well
and I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties
the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
And you are official. But Erica can deliver, so if you guys got board stuff, I have them all labeled too.
Oh, thank you.
And then we'll get them back and I'll take final signature, and then there's 2 copies, so if you wanna keep one for your own official
Okay.
records. And then we'll get them registered in
Thank
the
you.
elections office.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I'll
Thank
see
you
this
so
weekend.
much.
Yes, thank you for
Thank you.
inviting me and congratulations.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
ladies.
Yeah, chicks rule.
Girl power. And Jan, you know I'm all for that. Being the first female county superintendent.
I
Thank you guys, have a great evening.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Michael,
Bye.
see you later.
Sorry, Aaron, sorry, kid.
We said maybe we should move down the table.
They're fine as long as they just let us rule.
Things could be so much better.
Okay, I think we're running kind of early here.
Sure.
Yeah, so let's do the other part before, so why don't we go to 7A, which is you,
Okay.
and it's the approval of the page 69 in our.
Okay, so item 7A is a memorandum of understanding with the district and CSEA, our classified union of employees, particularly regarding a position called library media specialist. We have a library media specialist at every site. This is the job that works in the library of every school. And the staff in these positions have, in the past, I would say 5 or so years, have, their workload has increased and has changed due to changing times and circumstances in the district. And we have engaged in negotiations and came to an agreement in May with the union to regrade. That means to change the compensation scale of the library media specialists in honor of the work that they do and that they have done. And we've also taken the time to look at their job description and to update it to reflect a more current state of what it is that they do on a day-to-day basis. This job description does not capture everything, but it's a generalized sense of what our staff works with on a day-to-day basis. Without these staff members, our students wouldn't have access to libraries, library books, research projects, and so on. So we're very thankful and grateful to have them at every one of our school sites.
There was one thing that I read that I was kind of taken aback on. And it's on page 72. And it's at the top and it says, works with the site principal to select and order new books, supplies, and non-book media. And that was crossed out. And I was just kind of curious as to, because, you know, we use site fund from site council. You know, we use funds from site council to buy books lots of times. And I was just, does that mean that the librarians have full reign on order whatever they want, or how does that work?
So that's a good question. The edits to this document were made in collaboration with CSEA.
Yes.
They actually met with their members and they perhaps polled a couple of them, but not the majority of the group. So what this does is that it takes out the language and it provides clarification with the new language that is underlined. So the library media specialists do have a budget for their libraries so that they can replenish their books, they can order materials that they need in their library. They continue working with the site principals, but the actions themselves are reflected in the language that's below and that's underlined. For example, responsible for ordering, processing, cataloging, distributing, circulating, and inventorying all library books, non-book media, core literature, novel sets, textbooks, and consumable textbooks. The group, the collaboration between both the union and the district felt that that was more descriptive than the language that
I'm talking about, you know, fiction books.
Yes,
I'm not
they get to
talking
order
about
their own.
textbooks.
And we have an expert up on the dais now. We have Kathy, who just retired from this position, so
Right.
feel free to.
So how does that, I mean, obviously blueberry winners and Caldecott winners get selected. But I mean, I
I think, how does that work? We choose the books that our students love. And we also have salesmen that come in, make recommendations. You can do it many ways.
Right,
You know, but the books that students love get well read and worn, and we
Sure.
often have to reorder
Yeah, that's true.
the same books.
Mhm.
But we do it within a budget or any funds that we may have collected, you know, during book fairs or, you know, different promotional.
Right.
So are you asking, Jen, why the principal was pulled from that process?
I think, well, you know, for example, the state, used, when I taught language arts, the state would put together a list of a highly recommended reading list for each grade level.
Or literature books.
Yeah. And when I started, because I was a social science major, but I had enough to teach language arts. And so I would go through and pick some books and read them, and then I'd like, well, you know, I don't really like this, I'm gonna teach this. You know, and they were on the recommended reading list, so when I went to my principal, I would say, well, you know, I would like to do this, and it, because it was on the state recommended, I didn't, you know, there was no problem. Because if I wasn't picking something that was far out of left field, you know what I mean? So I wonder how things are
Figure
doing
out
it.
how the books that teachers need are in the library, or
Oh,
how the librarians are selecting those
yeah,
contexts to be in the library.
so you use lists like that and, you
Yes,
know,
but also, you know, we really need to watch the content that is in those books. Just because it was recommended, it may not be recommended for a third grader or, you know.
oh, these were by grade. Yeah, these were by grade, yeah. But I understand what you're
But
saying.
still, the content on
Yeah.
someone's views may be different from someone else's.
Right,
eyes.
right.
We do keep a close eye on that.
Mm-hmm. I always, I know, a lot of people teach The Giver, and it's recommended at even a sixth grade level, but I think the content is too high. I see exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
Lisa, you had a question?
I was just wondering, farther down on one of the bullets, this is works with site administrator to ensure that all teachers and students have the textbooks needed for the yearly Williams review. Is that, is that where principal goes, like site administrator, who's the site administrator, and what's the Williams review?
So the Williams review is an annual review. It's a legal compliance review that takes place at the school sites. They check for textbook sufficiency. Somebody from the county, along with our staff, comes and they're assigned these walkthrough audits to ensure, for example, if I'm teaching 30 fifth graders, that those 30 students have all the textbooks that are needed. So we have to make sure that all of that's taken care of prior.
So that's the site administrator who comes in from the county. Okay, that's all I was wondering.
Good questions.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any other questions about the MOU? All right, would anyone like to make a motion? I'll make the motion that we approve the MOU between the Hollister School District and CSEA, Chapter 621.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
3 abstain?
Abstain.
1. Okay, so 3 yes, 1 abstention. All right, let's go to, I think we've done everything except the Q&A, right?
Right?
Okay,
So we could take a break.
yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. And
When are people coming in for?
I think they're here.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes, so, Kip, you mind going over and
Sure.
telling them that we're gonna take a 5-minute break and, All right, everyone, thank you for all coming tonight. As the board considers the interim superintendent, Erica Sanchez, for the position of superintendent, the board has invited Ms. Sanchez and representatives from several of our stakeholder groups to participate in this question and answer meeting. Specifically, one representative from HESTA, CSEA, Site Council, PTSO, and DLAC have been invited to participate in this process. Each representative will have an opportunity to ask Ms. Sanchez one question from a list of questions. The board will consider Ms. Sanchez's answers to each question. Thereafter, the board may ask Ms. Sanchez questions. The question and answer meeting will conclude with Ms. Sanchez having an opportunity to express her interest in the superintendent position. Please be aware that you want to use little time as possible in asking your question, so Erica has sufficient time to answer as completely as possible. Given that we have 7 questions to ask, the candidate will have approximately 4 minutes to respond. If you need to ask the candidate for clarification on a response, you may do so. But in the interest of time, please keep requests and clarification at a minimum. And I think I just blew this. Our moderator, Jackie, will you please talk to the group? You can take over my spot.
Yes, thank you. And again, welcome. By way of introduction, my name is Dr. Jackie Horsch, and I'll facilitate the discussion. So a final reminder, please remember that your questions must come from the list of questions, and you're not allowed to inquire regarding topics of race, age, sex, religion, marital status, etc. So we're going to ask each one of the panel members if they would please introduce themselves, and we'd like to start out with our HESTA president.
My name is Angela Higgins, and I'm the president for our teachers union, Officer Elementary School Teachers Association.
And then I'm Enriquez Andejas. I'm the president for the California Schools Employee Association, representing the classified staff.
Diana Hertz, principal at Mays Middle School.
My name is Vanessa Moreno, and I'm the president of the HEI Parents Club.
My name is Mara Madrid, and I'm the president of the Parent Club at Calaveras and AAA.
Thank you. So we will invite stakeholder participation in this question and answer meeting in the following order. The first question will be from the HESTA representative, then CSEA, then the Site Council, next PTSO, and finally DLAC. We would like to spend approximately 4 minutes on each question. Thereafter, each board member will have an opportunity to ask Ms. Sanchez a question. The remaining time will be provided to Ms. Sanchez to share her interest in the superintendent position. So, if there are no questions from the panel, from board members, then let's begin. So, HESTA President, would you please begin?
Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I think we wanted Erica to open up. Would you like to say something before we get started?
Thank you.
Thank you, Board President Brisk. Good evening, members of the board, panel members. I appreciate your time this evening. Dr. Orridge, I appreciate you traveling and coming to be with us tonight, and cabinet members, thank you for being here tonight as well. I look forward to being able to answer the questions and participate in this dialogue and this discussion with you tonight, and let's begin.
Okay. Describe your experiences in assessing and supporting student well-being. How have you addressed the physical, social, and emotional well-being of the students in your district? What challenges do you see facing the new superintendent in this area? particularly after the COVID-19 school closures?
This is a great question, and it is one that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm passionate about students, all shapes, all sizes, all grade levels, all backgrounds. Students are what I'm here for. Students are what I became a teacher for and why I have remained in this district for 17 years. When assessing a student's social and emotional needs, I think that as we grow with our students and we learn to have relationships with them, we can see as educators, but also as administrators and here at the district office level, we can work with students and we can work with our staff to determine whether or not our students have social emotional needs. At the Hollister School District, thanks to the board, thanks to the direction that we've taken, we have implemented a new philosophy and a new approach to social emotional well-being by adopting and allocating funds for a social emotional team member at every school site. As a superintendent, I would say that the primary goal would be to help provide the oversight, the leadership, and the collaboration with these team members who are at the school sites that are working alongside the teachers. Part of my resume, as you can see, involves a lot of training and different certifications in mental health, psychological well-being, relational building, and that is because I'm really passionate and interested about building relationships with adults, but also and particularly with students. Students come to our classrooms with different needs, with different areas of growth, with different opportunities for growth. And we as educators have the responsibility to collaborate and to provide the tools and the resources that our students need to be successful. Part of the question that was asked is, what are the challenges do you see facing the superintendency during a post-COVID or as we emerge from COVID? I would say that this question is not only pertaining to the superintendency, but as to the organization as a whole. The superintendent will provide guidance and will provide leadership and direction as to how we will address student needs, but it is the entire organization at all levels that will require attention to meet the needs of our students. Some of our students have not been in a classroom since March 2020. Some of them have been isolated. Some of them have lost family members. And to me, that is just a reminder as a parent, as a community member, of how important our job is on a day-to-day basis, whether we're here at the district office or whether we're at a school site, to remember that students come to the classroom with assets. Students come to the classroom with opportunities for growth. And as educators, whether we're classified staff, whether we're certificated staff, or administrators, we're here to find those assets and build upon them. I think that being in a district that has a social emotional focus, we have the opportunity to make a difference for students as they come back in August and be present, be the adults that they need in their lives to connect with them, be the role models and build them up.
Describe your experience with negotiations. How do you get to yes when both sides are miles apart?
Okay, I like this question. I like this question because I must be honest and say that negotiations used to scare me. I did not want to be the person that was the lead negotiator for the district, and I thought, oh my goodness, so you want me to go in there and do what? Or what I have found though is that I love negotiations, that I've grown into that capacity because I see negotiations as an opportunity to build relationships. Negotiations start prior to entering the room, prior to sitting across the table from the other party. I have, as you can see in my resume, also a very big interest in negotiations. I've taken several trainings. I've also had the opportunity to be mentored by a National Superintendent Honoree of the Year. And I have learned a lot. But what I can say is that when there are two sides that seem to be miles apart, they really are not. It's a matter of thinking creatively. It's a matter of engaging in conversations and asking questions. I believe in humble inquiry. That's the method that one uses to ask questions, to understand why, to find common interests that allow for two teams that seem to be miles apart to come together in a consensus. There are going to be negotiations where one side might feel like they're getting the short end of the stick or are not getting everything that they have asked for. Those are the opportunities that one can use to build a relationship. I do not react. I do not react to confrontation. I think that if anyone has been in a negotiation session where I've been present, we can say historically I've been very calm. I've tried to find the solutions, and I've tried to utilize a collaborative effort to be able to be in a dialogue. I see this as a dialogue, and it is one that takes effort and takes absolute a deliberate approach, but it's one that's well worth it. Because in the end, when you have two groups, and I don't say they're opposing groups, but two different groups, and they come together in an agreement, there's no greater feeling than that. That's one that I look forward to, and I absolutely relish when we get to that point, because it is a sense of true satisfaction, knowing that our relationship is strong, knowing that we have the respect towards each other, knowing that we have the facts and the evidence that has been shared, which is one thing that helps when two groups feel like they're miles apart, is sharing information, being as transparent as possible, looking for solutions, looking for other possibilities, finding out what it is that the other party is interested in. So negotiations are not about going into a room and just getting what you want. That's not what it is. If that's the mindset, then you are miles apart, and it's very difficult to come together. With that, negotiations are a way to be able to grow, I would say professionally, and to grow the bond. Because in the end, whether it's one labor group or another or the district, we're all here for students. And that's the focus.
The site council representative.
How would you determine whether an excellent school system needs to be improved?
Okay. So, looking at the school system is a very complicated and complex thing, organization. What I would do is to determine whether or not, first of all, a school is successful, I would find the definition for success. Different people have different definitions of success. Our definition of success might not be the board's definition of success or the community's definition of success, but most importantly, it might not be the student's definition of success. So I would first identify what success is. It will be a different answer from every one of those groups. One of the answers that I will absolutely focus on is, what do the students determine our success? What do our staff determine is success? And what do I determine is success in collaboration with the board? When we've determined what the parameters for success is, we look at what the definition is, what the criteria is, what the data shows, whether it's culture and climate surveys, whether it's assessments, but we as a collective group need to determine whether or not improvement needs to be made. If you've worked with me, you know that I hold myself to a very high expectation. I will never hold anyone to a higher expectation than I hold myself. I think that as a professional, as a practitioner, I do not believe in complacency, because complacency allows for us to lose and leave students behind, and that's not what I'm here for. We're here to work together, to innovate, to determine whether or not we we are being successful? If we are, that's wonderful. What else can we do? Where can we share our successes and our talents and our gifts with other school sites or with other districts? What can we do to build upon what we have? One area that I would say, as a Hollister School District, we can look at and determine is our parent group. We can ask ourselves, how do we incorporate our parents more so onto the school campuses, onto our school communities? How can we build partnerships? Our schools are successful, but how can we build partnerships with other feeder schools? For example, our high school, which a large percentage of our students end up enrolling at San Benito High School. How do we build that bond? When we've determined that we've absolutely met all of that criteria, I would say there's probably another goal on the horizon for us to look at, and that goal would be determined with staff input. We also have to always measure ourselves against the LCAP. What progress have we made? What progress have we made towards our board goals, our district goals, and how do we just keep working towards improvement?
Thank you. Representative from PTSO, please.
How do you handle conflict and ensure that all voices feel they are being heard, regardless of the ultimate decision?
Thank you for this question. Conflict is one that I think as human beings we shy away from, and it's very difficult sometimes to engage in trying to diffuse the conversation that's escalating. I personally have learned to embrace conflict and to work with conflict, or try to diffuse conflict. So I am a person that remains calm during all moments of conflict, during all moments of tension, and I remind myself each and every time that whoever it is that's speaking to me, perhaps in an emotional state, my job is to treat them with dignity and respect. My job is to always listen, and in that moment, treat that person with the utmost of importance, because whatever it is that they are reacting towards, it is absolutely important to them, and that's what's causing that reaction. So I've come to work every day knowing that our backgrounds, our emotions, our background experiences, our biases, they all impact how we interact with each other, how we come across, how we relate with our colleagues and such. And with that, I always have to remember that there's dignity. There is dignity to be had, and there's dignity to give. I treat people and situations with grace, because one day I will need that grace back. We also always have to be mindful and listen to all parties. So for example, if there's a conflict and one person comes and shares their story, I have to keep an open mind and remember that this is part of the story, but there might be 2, 3, 4, 5 other people that will also have their point of view. And being able to open and respect all of their points of view is a key factor to being able to diffuse and work with conflict. Another kind of conflict that doesn't always get spoken about in an organization is conflict amongst colleagues. When you work on a team, in a team, with a team, you don't always get along, and that's okay. The environment has to be safe enough to where staff feels that they can disagree in a respectful way. When that happens, that's where growth takes place and sometimes innovation. We have to always ensure that as a team, we have the respect to listen to each other and be respectful as we disagree, and it's okay to disagree, but not allow for that to be a moment that I would consider as conflict, or that my team would consider as conflict. That's just the humanness in us, that we are going to address it and work through it and move on.
Thank you. I do have representatives.
Describe the ways you would communicate with the larger school community on a regular basis and during times when potentially controversial decisions are being discussed.
This is a very good question. As a district employee, we often have to communicate, and we have to communicate efficiently and clearly. We have to communicate in a way that does not project our own personal opinion, but is subjective and is one that allows for staff or for the larger community to understand facts, to understand pertinent information that has to do with the district without my bias in that voice. So one way that I would communicate is being open to participate in school activities. It's one thing for staff and for parents and community to come all the way to the district office and meet here, but it's a different thing for me to go out there where parents are, where staff is, where the children are, because that's what makes it more accessible. The majority of families are not going to come here to the district office. I will have to go to them and meet them where they're at. We also have technology. We are implementing a student information system called ARIES, and ARIES is a way for us to keep track of our student information, but also to communicate with parents. It allows us to communicate with parents in an electronic and instant way. We also have our district website. We're able to send out text messages, emails, all calls. We can send out flyers. We can do social media. Whatever it takes to reach the biggest amount of parents, that's what we are capable and able to do. Is it something that I'm comfortable with? Absolutely. In my other roles of working with categorical programs and different departments, I've been able to send out mass messages as needed. I truly, truly believe in the power of interaction, personal interaction. That's very strong and very much able to build relationships. Y porque es de DLAC, voy a hablar en español. So, la pregunta fue, ¿cómo puede uno comunicarse con la comunidad entera? Entonces, lo que dije es que al usar el sistema de estudiantes, podemos mandar mensajes electrónicos instantáneos. También podemos mandar correos electrónicos, llamadas. Lo importante es saber que como superintendente, uno va a ir a la comunidad donde la comunidad está presente. Por ejemplo, cuando hay eventos en la escuela, yo puedo ir y hablar y platicar y interactuar con las familias. Entonces, no siempre esperar que las familias vengan hasta acá al distrito, porque eso no es posible siempre. Uno tiene que estar disponible para hacer lo que es posible y aunque lo que se siente que es imposible para poder comunicarnos con nuestros padres, porque la relación entre ambos es completamente esencial y muy importante.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question is going to go to Board President Chris.
Describe how you would prepare an agenda for the next school board meeting. What will be your procedure for determining how items get on the agenda?
I like this question because it's a very technical question and one that we're already working on and working on improving as we work together in this capacity as interim superintendent. So towards the end of every agenda, there's an agenda item that's a standing agenda item. It's called future agenda items. I make it a point to listen to what the board is indicating in that moment. I take notes. I write myself reminders, and I do the best I can to follow through with what the board is requesting. That's one way. That's an indirect way. The most direct way would be to work with the board president to come up with items and topics that are pertinent to the following month's agenda. we would discuss if there's anything that is coming up, any timeline, any legal document, any report that needs to be talked about or discussed, and we would review that together. Once the communication has been had with the board president, I would say that the communication then has to go to the entire board so that they are aware that this agenda item is coming. As a interim superintendent, I have worked on a draft governance calendar that runs from July, the beginning of the fiscal year, to June, the end of the fiscal year. And it pertains to different topics, different reports, different governance items, and it is an approach to be as transparent and pace ourselves when it comes to agendizing items. There's also another separate list that's in the draft form that are monthly board reports that our departments and our school sites will be reporting to the board. And all of this is done in an effort of maintaining communication, which is absolutely essential when working with the board to create the board agenda.
Thank you. Our next question would be for board member Martinez.
How will you work with the school board to provide the board with timely information and recommendations regarding budgetary concerns?
Okay, this is a very important topic for a school district. So, as you know, we work and operate with an annual budget that is adopted in June. And that is a very simple statement for a very complicated process. So, to answer this question, the communication between myself and the business department, our director of business, has to be very consistent, has to be on point, and has to be very clear and efficient, so that there is always a sense of what is going on with the budget. I believe that the superintendent should have a buffer between him or herself and the budget. That buffer is the business department and the director of the business services. The director of the business services, or the CBO, should have a daily pulse on the budget at all times. So whether we are in negotiations, whether we are in closed session with the board, whether we are preparing for a report, that if there's a question as to a major aspect of the budget, that I can tap into and work with our director of business services and answer what it is that we're trying to figure out. We also have the annual budget cycles that appear in our governance calendar and that happen throughout the year, every year. So for example, a budget adoption in June. We also have first and second interim. Before that, we also have unaudited actuals. In addition to those technical pieces, we also have financial audits that when they take place, communication with the business department is key and essential, because we want to know what's happening and what the outcomes are of those financial audits. We also want to be sure that we understand together what the goals are of the LCAP and what the money is that has been allocated to the LCAP, how we're doing on that spending, what we're doing and not doing, what we need to do to revise the expenses, but we also have to think creatively. I think that in the future, one item that we have not done that perhaps we can entertain is having budget development workshops with the board. They may have taken place or with our labor partners, with our administrators, so that we can determine what priorities, what financial priorities exist or will be coming in the upcoming year, so that there is that transparency, there is that communication and that sense of collaboration with all of our employees, so that there are no surprises.
Well, at this time, we really want to thank you, Erica, for your to review the candidates' responses and qualifications for the position. So if you wish to share something, please raise your hand and I will be happy to call. Yes.
As representative of PESTA, we appreciate all of Ms. Sanchez's experience and all her years with the district. We would like to reiterate that should the decision be made for Ms. Sanchez to become our permanent superintendent, we would like to see a consultant to help guide, because there's you're young, and bringing in somebody who's had years of experience, who's brought their districts through other crises, it'd be good to have someone to lean on and to be sure that you don't burn out too soon. So we would very much like to ensure that happens, and hopefully somebody that the labor groups can trust, because some of the people we've had recently have not given us that sense of security. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other panel members like to share some input? Yes, please.
I'll just share that on behalf of the other administrators in our district, I want to thank Erica for all of her support, especially during the closure and being on distance learning and hybrid, and teachers stressing out, and students who are struggling right now. So on behalf of all of us, we want to thank you for your ongoing support.
Thank you. Any other comments for the board? Any input? Anything you'd like to share?
I'd like to see, Erica, is there, now that you've answered all these questions and everything, is there something that you would like to say to us about why this is important to you?
Absolutely. I do have something that I would like to share with the board and our panel members for the Q&A and our cabinet and our community as a whole. So our district has undergone many changes, adaptations, and moments of flexibility in the past year. These are in addition to the many transitions that have taken place in the past few years. And change in itself is not that bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Staff, students, and families have made the best with what the world has wrestled with, a worldwide pandemic. The educational world in San Benito County has emerged, or is emerging, from a burden that 2 years ago would have been unfathomable. Our HSD staff have embraced each other and our students by making home visits, creating packets of work, distributing books and materials, distributing meals, when all else was closed. We as a collective group did that. Our staff, our teams, our people united to make daily education take place for our students, even though it was through a screen. When some of the world quarantined, our teams worked as essential workers each day, some leaving children at home, some left worried loved ones at home, as they went to work, as we came to work each and every day, thinking about the what ifs. As we emerge from this historical moment, we have the opportunity now, brought on by the reset taking place due to COVID, to pause and reflect what has worked in HSD, to connect again as colleagues, co-workers, and mentors to our almost 6,000 students. Now is the time to dream big, have new beginnings, reestablish what works, be consistent where it is needed, make changes in areas that require our attention, and change. It's time to be innovative, to come together, to collaborate with our colleagues. We are the same people that pulled together during the most uncertain of times to make things happen. We are the same people that will band together to lift our students up during this upcoming school year. We have the opportunity to respond to our students' fears and uncertainties in a way that we have never experienced. For some, both students and staff that have not been in a classroom since March 2020. Right now is the time for us to work together to build upon the foundation and the beauty that I see in HSD. It is our turn to impact this generation of staff and students, just as those before us worked to the best of their ability to allow for me to be here with you today. This is our time to reframe our thinking and ask ourselves, what assets do our students bring into the classroom? What can I do for this student that may not be progressing at the same rate as others? What can we do to unlock the rich potential in each of our students and staff this year? The superintendency is not just about me, but rather I believe it is about us, the collective us, all of us. It is our legacy to build and to establish. This partnership is about our families and students. Some of them come from humble means, and others have the ability to feel financially secure. My passion is to bring education to all students. Education is an equalizer, and I believe that wholeheartedly. It opens the doors of opportunity that perhaps did not exist before for our students. What I've learned in life is that you can have financial security. You can have a home, a nice car, health, children, but all of these things can be taken from you, whether it is based on your own decisions or the consequences of decisions of others. However, once you earn an education, no one can take that from you, ever. To me, education is not just something that we have to provide to students in Hollister. It is an opportunity, a door that we are opening for them and their future. Lastly, to my team, I wouldn't be here without you. To current and past certificated and classified colleagues that have helped me along the way, you're a motivation and an inspiration to me to do my best each day. To our board, thank you for the opportunity to have served in the various capacities that I have had in the last 17 years here at HSD. I value each one of you and your expertise that you bring to the governance team. And to my family, they're probably watching out there, I just want to tell them that I love them. My parents have worked selflessly to provide an educational opportunity for their children, and I am here because of them. And last but not least, to my kids. I do everything for those two, and I love them, and I'm proud of them, and grow up and serve others. That's the words of wisdom from Mom, and that's what I come with. I see all children through the lens as a mom, with that love and with that passion. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know what we do now.
Board President, I think we're going to tell them what our next step is.
Yes, I think our next step is to have some refreshments.
Yes.
Yes.
So on that note, let's have some refreshments and we can go around and talk. And we will, let's have a motion to.
Closed session.
Yeah. Do you have any comments for a closed session? So we can go to closed session
I
now?
make a motion that we convene closed session.
Okay, second. All right, all in favor say? Aye. 4 zip, here we go.